Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that has to do with human development and psychology to help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Excuse me. And last time we were talking about information processing approach, perceptions, and representations. And now we're going to talk about habituation. Habituation at about 6 weeks. A child lies peacefully in their crib near a window, sucking a pacifier. It's a cloudy day, but suddenly the sun breaks through, and an angular shaft of light appears on the end of the crib. The child stops sucking for a few moments, staring at the pattern of light and shade. Then he looks away and starts sucking again. So that was a novel experience. His brain saw that. It was something new. It caught his attention, so he stopped sucking, his pacifier and paid attention to what this thing going on here was. It was a novel experience, and that's what our brains crave. Our brains crave novel experiences. So, we get bored doing the same old thing every day, and we get into a routine and the schedule, and it feels, normal and comfortable to us, but our brain likes new things. It likes to discover, So habituation is the simple type of learning in which familiarity with a stimulus reduces, slows, or stops a response. Like the first time you see that might be beautiful and exciting, but then the child's going to see that sunbeam at the same time every day because the sun travels in a pattern. Actually, the earth, but anyway, we're not going to get into the science part of it. But it's going to happen. And the more it happens, the less and less the child is going to pay attention to it. And we're like that with everything in our life. The more something happens, the less and less we're going to pay attention to it. Dishabituation. Increase in responsiveness after presentation of a new stimulus. So, we're going to pay attention to something that's new, something that's novel, something we've never encountered before. We're going to pay more attention to that. That's just how we're wired. And that is actually survival, instinct. It helps, like, if you see something new, is that something dangerous? I need to pay attention to this. This thing is the same old thing, but this is something new. I need to pay attention to this to see what's going on, to know if I'm in any danger or not. So that's why that happens in your brain. Visual preference. Tendency of infants to spend more time looking at one site than another. And that's because we're all different. We like what we like. I had 3 kids. They were all different. One of them liked, the little black and white pattern, poster on the wall. One of them liked these little bears. One of them liked the little things around the crib better. So we're all different. And as babies, that starts to show too. We will prefer one thing over another. I've heard some parents who, I'm not going to get into that, maybe weren't, the best intentioned people ever, let's put it that way, would get upset, because we bought this expensive toy for the child and they preferred the box. But that's the thing, with kids. They like what they like. Visual recognition memory. Ability to distinguish a familiar visual stimulus from an unfamiliar one when shown both at the same time. And, like I said, your brain will focus on the thing that's not familiar because it's a new thing. And that's a survival mechanism they want you to know. Is this something I need to worry about? I'm unfamiliar with this thing. That's fine. But this is a new thing. Is this something I need to worry about? Cross-modal transfer. Ability to use information gained by one sense to guide another. So, if you see a cherry pie, you might sniff to see if you smell the cherry pie, and your mouth might start to water because you like the cherry pie, or, you might wrinkle your nose because you don't like the cherry pie. So it just all depends. But, it's when one sense, like sight, hearing, smell, whatever, triggers another one to get more information, because our brain wants more information on everything. And so that's a way for, it to gather more information get a better picture of what it's experiencing. Violation of expectations. Haven't we all had that? Research method in which dishabituation to a stimulus that conflicts with experience is taken as evidence that an infant finds the new stimulus surprising. So, like if you expected to see a clown face and a bear face popped up, you're like, whoa, didn't expect that. But, like I said, in life, we've all had some violation of expectations, and that is a lot of the problem. In Buddhism, that's something they teach you about. Your expectations are the problem in your relationships with other people. You expect things of other people, and other people are only who they are. You only have control over you and who you are and what you're doing. So when other people let you down, it's your expectations of them that actually let you down. Because if you expect a person to behave a certain way, and they didn't behave that way, that lets you down. That was your expectation, So what they teach is that you're responsible for your behavior, only your behavior. Don't expect anything from other people, and you'll not be disappointed. Kind of a, negative way, in my opinion, of looking at things, because people are going to let you down. You're going to have your expectations unmet in certain circumstances. But, relationships, friendships can be repaired through talking. I'm a big believer in marriage counseling, family counseling. Things can be worked out. But, in life, our expectations are going to be violated. So you just, off on my little side soapbox on that one. Let's say explicit memory, intentional and conscious memory, generally of facts, names, and events. And that's where usually school comes in. You're learning specific things like facts, names, events. That is, your explicit memory that you're using when you do that. Implicit memory, unconscious recall, generally of habits and skills, sometimes called procedural memory. And that can be, something that you're doing, like, how to, like if you're a mechanic, how to fix a certain thing, how to ride a bike, how to stay balanced on your skates. That is all procedure. You're doing something and your body basically remembers, some people call it muscle memory, how to do this thing. It's something that you started doing, and your body remembers how to do it. So, you thought there was only one kind of memory. There's not. There's a couple. There's actually more. Working memory, short-term storage of information being actively processed. And that's when you're taking in, you're learning, you're studying, this is something that you're doing presently. So it's, sometimes like we memorize stuff to take a test, and then we're taking the test, and then later on we don't remember because we were just studying to learn to take the test. So guided participation of an adult in a child's activity in a manner that helps to structure the activity and to bring the child's understanding of it closer to that of the adults. And I'm sure we've all done that. Gone down on the floor, played with the kid. The kids are crazy. They just be doing crazy things. And you play with them like, realistically, would be. And of course you shouldn't stifle creative play. But you're showing them a little more realistic way of being. Or if they're trying to build or do or whatever, you have a little input and say, well, why don't we try this? What do you think about this? What do you think? Would it be better if we did this? Put this block here or put it here? And then you're kind of guiding the child. You don't take over for the kid. I've seen people do that. I actually got accused by a first grade teacher of doing that, doing some work. And I was like, no, I sat there and made sure he did do that. So I didn't do that for him. I made sure he did that, you know? So, but, you know, this is where adults come in. They guide you in, you know, your play. And that's something that should be happening with adults and children. But there are, unfortunately, a lot of adults who never do guided participation. They never get involved with kids' play. They never get involved with kids' work and homework. They're totally hands-off parents, got their own life thing going on. They expect the child to just do everything by themselves and learn everything by themselves. And that's why, unfortunately, we have a lot of ignorant people in the world today, because no one wants to bother to parent, you know, and that's a dang shame. Language, communication system based on words and grammar. And that is important in your life. If you can't speak with your mouth, then you can learn sign language and, you know, other ways, writing, to communicate. We need to be able to communicate to get our needs met. So communication is a big forward step from being a baby to being an older child, is to get your needs met. Excuse me, because all a baby can do is cry, and then we guess. Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Do they need a diaper change? You know, what's going on? When they can communicate their needs, they can get them met easier. So our brains are wired to be able to want to communicate, and that way we survive better. Literacy, ability to read and write. And some people think that's not a big deal. I personally think it is a big deal, because if you are able to read well, then you can learn more, you know, you can get more input. And if you can write, then you can create, you can teach, you know, so I feel like it's an important skill. Prelinguistic speech, forerunner of linguistic speech, utterance of sounds that are not words, includes crying, cooing, babbling, and accidental and deliberate imitation of sounds without understanding their meaning. This is what the children do when they start saying da, ma, you know, that is the beginning. That is the beginning of speech. They might not understand yet, but they're trying to reproduce these sounds so that they can learn to speak to us. And you should encourage that. And you should, like I said, you should be taking your kid around, showing them everything, and say, hey, that's a bowl. That's a bowl. And, you know, they'll try to imitate that. So, you know, that is how your children learn. And the more input you give them, the smarter they're going to be. So that's just a fact there. Linguistic speech, verbal expression designed to convey meaning. And that's when we're using our language. We're telling you something, it means something, and hopefully you can understand what it means, you know. Holophrase, a single word that conveys a complete thought. And that has become more of a thing with, you know, the millennial generation, and a lot of highly intelligent people use telegraphic speech, you know, where one word can be a complete thought. Like, I know my kids for a while were like, not, meaning they weren't interested in that, or, you know, they weren't going to do what I said, but, you know, they end up doing it. And, you know, it meant not interested in that. So that would be, you know, a hollow phrase. Just one example. There are other things, you know, that could be similar. Telegraphic speech, easy form of sentence consisting of only a few essential words. And like I said, sometimes highly intelligent people use those because they feel like a lot of words is a waste of time and effort. And so they'll cut it down, you know, to something, you know, a little bit smaller, like, yep, doing that today. Instead of, you know, saying, boy, yes, I do plan on, you know, making a podcast today. So hopefully, you know, you'll find it and listen to it. Yeah, that's a lot more than just saying, yep, I'm doing that today. So Syntax, rules for forming sentence in a particular language. And all of our languages have syntax. I have some problems with syntax because, like I said, I had a stroke that affected my speech center. So my syntax can be off sometimes. And sometimes people pick up the way I sound versus what I actually say. Like I said something one time to someone and they thought I was saying that they didn't do this thing, that I said, thank you for doing this thing. But it was the way I said it, the syntax made them feel like I was saying that they didn't do this thing for me. So, there are problems sometimes with people listening fully because, sometimes our syntax is off. And the syntax of different languages, is different. Like I find Spanish to be like kind of short, chop, 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 words. Whereas ours are generally a little more drawn out and longer. And I know people who speak other language who've said that English is very hard. Nativism, a theory that human beings have an inborn capacity for language acquisition. And that is just a fact, that we're born and we want to communicate, so we learn language. And if you're exposed to several different languages, my nephew has married a Russian woman, and she speaks English and Russian to the child, trying to get the child to speak both languages. So, we have that capacity. And the younger you start that, the easier it is for you to learn. Like I said, I've been studying Spanish since I was older, and I'm still not fluent. I might get a few sentences and understand a few things, like if we're going to a hotel or restaurant or something, I could probably get by, but I know I don't have the capacity that a younger child would have if they were learning. It would be a lot easier for them. Language acquisition device, an LAD, in Chomsky's terminology, an inborn mechanism that enables children to infer linguistic rules from the language they hear. So no one sits down and explains to a toddler the way you structure a sentence. They hear the way it's being done, and then they reproduce that way. So there's some inference there that they learn. And that's something that is also, we're programmed with. We're basically like a little computer. We have automatic systems and non-automatic systems. Code mixing. Use of elements of two languages, sometimes in the same utterance, by young children in households where both languages are spoken. Like I said, my nephew's family, that's what they got going on. So, they might use half a sentence, in English and then change it to a word that they either like better or more familiar with from the other language. So, they mix the languages up based on what they're hearing the most, like if they hear mom saying milk the most in Russian, they're going to say that the most in Russian. Whereas dad said, let's go out, they'll in English, and they're going to say that the most in English because that's what they're hearing. Code switching, changing one's speech to match the situation, as is people who are bilingual. Again, that's just switching the language up. You talk more to someone in the language they speak, of course. So, that's just, again, a natural thing that would happen. Child-directed speech, CDS. Form of speech often used in talking to babies or toddlers, includes slow, simplified speech, a high-pitched tone, exaggerated vowel sounds, short words and sentences, and much repetition, also called parentese or baby talk. You talk to the child on their level in the way that you feel like they can understand. And you let the child dictate when things change, because as the child learns more and it can speak more and better, Of course, you're going to want to up yours a little bit. You're not going to want to talk in parentese to a 10-year-old, because then they're going to look at you like, what is wrong with you? Why are you talking to me like I'm an idiot? These slick pages. Slick pages. Okay. And we're going to skip ahead. Skip ahead. Skip ahead. Skip ahead. Let's see. That's about that. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Self-conscious emotions. Emotions such as embarrassment, empathy, and envy that depend on self-awareness. And there are poor people who are severely mentally disabled and you can't tell they have self-awareness. But at a certain point, usually, when you're 3, 4, 5, you become self-aware. You are aware that you are a being that exists and you're living inside of your body. That's your first clue. It's like, wait a minute, everybody else is out here. I'm inside here looking out through my own eyes. What is up with that? I can see myself in the mirror, but I can't see myself because, I'm inside here. But at some point, we all become self-aware and we realize we're a unique being of our own, and here we are. And we start to have emotions. We've had emotions before, but we can now verbalize them better. And like I said, embarrassment, we're gonna all get embarrassed. Let's face the facts. None of us are perfect. We're gonna do stupid stuff that embarrasses us, and that's okay. Deal with it. Move on. Empathy. We can feel for others. It's like, even if we've not been in that situation, we can put ourselves mentally in that situation. Say, wow, I just feel for them. That would be awful. I just don't know what I would do. I would feel so awful. So, that's something that grows as we get older. And envy, unfortunately, excuse me, got a little shoulder itch here. That is also something that comes about in our life. Like if we see the kid that has clothes we want, their parents can't afford or won't buy for us, we might envy that. Or we see the kid with the toys that we want that our parents can't afford or won't buy for us, we might envy that. Or if we think this person is better looking or smarter or whatever, we might envy that. And that's something, that's unfortunate, but as we develop emotions and more complex emotions, that's something that happens. But it's like I used to tell my kids, check yourself, and then there was a movie and my son started quoting that, check yourself before you wreck yourself. So, self-evaluative emotions, emotions such as pride, shame, and guilt, which depend on both self-awareness and knowledge of socially accepted standards of behavior. So in your culture, there is standards of behavior. All cultures have their own. For a good part of my childhood, we spent a lot of time with my maternal grandmother, who is descended from English people. So that type of code of behavior, it's like, you don't do this, you don't do that. We do it like this, we do it like that. So that's what I internalized. And then, my other side of the family had things a little different. They were German and Irish Catholic people, and most of their code of behavior was based on, what the church had to say about things. So every culture is different. And once you come up in a culture, you're going to start having a feel for what your culture feels is acceptable and not. So that is how you'll start, dealing with emotions based on what the code of behavior is. So pride, like you might be proud of accomplishments that you did, shame, of course, if you do something that you feel is wrong, you're going to feel ashamed about that. If you have a conscience. Now, there are sociopaths who they never feel ashamed of their behavior. Everything's fine, but, there are exceptions. Guilt, again, if you do something bad, you might feel guilty about that. And again, that needs self-awareness. So you have to be self-aware before you can feel these emotions. And like I said, there are sociopaths who never feel these emotions. They're just going around being narcissistic and using other people to get whatever they want out of life, which, that's a shame, but it happens. So, as we learn how we're supposed to behave, the expectations on us, we learn how to deal with them differently. Empathy, ability to put oneself in another person's place and feel what the other person feels. And I just talked about that a minute ago. That is a mature emotion. As we mature, there are children I knew in elementary school who are already exhibiting this. And I would have an inkling, a feeling of like, oh, but I could not express verbally as much as some of the people I knew express. I have this one friend, and she is like the sweetest person in the world. She has the biggest heart, and I just love her to death, because she can just empathize and she can just get right in there, and she can always think of what the right thing to say or do is. And that's amazing, because sometimes I have to think about it, and it seems like it's just automatic for her, So, I love people that are good at empathy. Social cognition, ability to understand that other people have mental states and to gauge their feelings and reactions. And children actually start that pretty early. They will look at you. They will gauge. Is she okay with this? Am I crossing the line? So even young children, have social cognition. They will start to, gauge how what they're doing is being felt by others. Let's see. Temperament. The characteristic, my gosh, I can't talk today. Disposition or style of approaching and reacting to situations. We all have our own temperament. You might be more easygoing, like me. You might be more uptight, like certain people in my family, I know. But that is your temperament. We all have a temperament. Some people were good-tempered. Some people were bad-tempered. Most people fall somewhere in the middle. We can swing both ways, depending on, if we're in a good mood or bad mood. If something good happens, something bad happened. But, we're all individuals and we're all unique, and we each have our own temperament. Easy children. Children with a generally happy temperament, regular biological rhythms, and readiness to accept new experiences. And that's what psychologists call easy children. Easygoing, happy kids. I mean, I was a happy kid. I was pretty easygoing, I thought, but, parents sometimes have their own deal. But, these are what psychologists call easy children, because they don't cause their parents any trouble. They're happy. They are happy to eat at a certain time. They're happy to go to the bathroom at a certain time. And those are considered easy children. Now, most children are not easy children. You get hungry when you get hungry. You go to the bathroom when you got to go to the bathroom. Sometimes you don't get enough sleep and you're in a bad mood. So an easy child is actually a very rare thing to happen. So, be aware that a child is not purposefully causing you a problem, especially a baby and toddler, by having needs. That's just the fact. They have them. They need them met. They can't do it for themselves. So they need you to help them. So just keep that in mind, that no child is purposefully doing things to aggravate you by needing to eat, drink, go to the bathroom, or whatever. Difficult children. Children with irritable temperament, irregular biological rhythms, and intense emotional responses. And I heard a woman say this about one of her children, that she just didn't like him. She just didn't like him. He had a bad attitude. She didn't like nothing about him. And I thought that was just the most horrible thing I've ever heard a parent say, because, like I said, if the kid is irritable, he might not have got enough sleep. He might be having an allergic reaction to what you're feeding him. There's a reason why a child is irritable. So you need to investigate that and figure that out so this poor little kid can stop being irritable. Be a responsible parent. Don't be a jerk. And again, like I said, we all have irregular biological rhythms based on what we eat, if we slept well, so don't expect your baby or toddler to be any different. Facts of life there. And intense emotional responses. If a child's needs are not getting met, they're going to have intense emotional responses. If they have any mental disabilities, they're going to have intense emotional responses because they're not capable of regulating, and small children are not capable of regulating their emotions yet anyway. So, if you feel like your kid's being a jerk, it's probably you being the jerk. Just the facts of life there. Because a child is not in control. So, difficult children, as labeled by psychologists, usually, as a psychiatrist that I used to work with said, there's no such thing as bad kids, only bad parenting. So that's just a fact of life. If you have a bad kid, chances are there was some bad parenting involved. Unless you had a child that was seriously mentally ill, was a psychopath, or sociopath. But again, those are the exceptions to the rule. And slow to warm up children whose temperament is generally mild, but who are hesitant about accepting new experiences. This could be a shy child. This could be a child who doesn't want to do anything new. And usually that has to do with temperament, but also parenting can come into play. If the child was scolded anytime it tried to investigate anything new or do anything new, then it's going to be more hesitant to do that. So, also, like I said, parenting can come into play. Parenting is a job. You need to invest the time, the effort, if you got the money, into your child. What you put into that child, you're going to get out. So I'm going to leave you there and hope that helped you to figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. Until next time.